Well, thanks. Can I ask who here is at their first FOSS4GE? Welcome to the event. I really hope you enjoy the week. I'd like to thank my employer for the opportunity to speak to you today. We're one of the sponsors of the event, and we're really pleased that you're here, and we hope you have a good time. I'm here to talk to you about the GeoNetwork 5 project. We actually have a GeoNetwork like status update about the regular care and feeding of the project on Friday to look forward to. This presentation is a little bit more of a roadmap of the development that we're taking on and some of the challenges we're facing and how we're planning to meet that. Now, I'm normally associated with the GeoServer project, but my employer, GeoCat, we have our company and the GeoCat Find product based on GeoNetwork. And I'm going to be speaking to you on behalf of some of the GeoNetwork 5 team. So David Blasby is located with me in Canada. Antonio is located in Italy. Jose is located in Spain, and Francois is located in France. So GeoNetwork 5 is very much a distributed undertaking, which is really good because we're going to be talking a little bit about how it's a distributed solution. My name's Jody Garnett, and I'm here on behalf of GeoCat. So just GeoNetwork at a glance, what is this project for? So it's a Java web application. It's to share and manage and edit metadata records, and it works with both records and geospatial records. I know most folks primarily use it with geospatial data sets, but it's actually very happy to manage PDFs and other assorted documents you've got in your life. Yeah, so just it speaks a number of standards so that the records you publish can be consumed by folks out there in the world. So it does catalog service web, which is the traditional OGC XML based standard. And we're starting to work, as you'll see in this presentation, on OGCAPI-Records. And so this is the new REST JSON kind of services that are being defined. And we're going to have an interesting couple of years here as we transition from the XML standards to the REST and JSON standards. So that's something we're really looking forward to. In terms of GeoNetwork, it primarily deals with these ISO standards. So ISO 19139 and so on are how we describe geospatial data and geospatial services. And that gets customized for different groups and countries and municipalities around the world. And one thing that GeoNetwork's really good at is working with the different customizations, the different profiles for the different regions. So I'm here on behalf of the GeoCat Find product. That's our company's product that we've got based on GeoNetwork technology. And we're looking at a challenge. So the challenge is GeoNetwork was first made in like 2001 or something, and it's been steadily maintained throughout the years. But we're at a turning point. GeoNetwork 4 makes use of a library called Spring Framework 5, and that library has reached the end of support last year. And so we've got to upgrade this library, and we need to do that primarily for regulatory compliance. So as a project, people that use GeoNetwork need to make sure that they've got access to the latest security updates and fixes in order to have authority to operate. So unless we update GeoNetwork to this newer version of the Spring Framework, we can't expect people to continue using it. So it's a real challenge for us. We need to have access to these latest updates primarily for security enhancements. That does involve updating us to the newer version of Java, Java 17. It also forces us to update the XML engine that we use behind the scenes in GeoNetwork, and that's a significant update, and it will involve updating all of those regional formats, the regional profiles, and so on for the metadata records. And so we're really looking to kind of take the GeoNetwork project and give it a new foundation, a new framework, in order to have a future-proof technology stack. So here's what that looks like. Here's what we're looking at. We have to go from Spring Framework 5 to Spring Framework 6. And that involves changing from Java Enterprise Edition to Jakarta Enterprise Edition, which means we have to change Tomcat and Jetty to use more recent versions. We've got to change our Java library from Java 11 to 17. That means we need to replace our little XML engine, Saxon. And we are actually using a version of Saxon from 2008. And we've maintained our own little patches on that old release of the XML engine. It's a really good XML engine, but we really would like to update to something that's more supported. And so Saxon Home Edition 12.5 is the one that we've been able to prove works and meets our needs. And when we do that, we're going to have to not necessarily rewrite, but we're going to have to migrate all of our national profiles to this new XML engine. And finally, changing the version of Spring means we need to rework our Spring security from version 5 to version 6. And this is really of interest to folks that operate GeoNetwork within an enterprise and want to manage their users as an organization. I'm just going to pause. That was a lot of talking. Does anyone have any questions about what the challenge is? I can stand here awkwardly for a few moments and catch my breath. Okay, so I just want to point out that we're taking this challenge very seriously. And what we've done is we've come up with two very interesting proposals. So the first proposal is we could just update from Spring Framework 5 to Spring Framework 6, but we're unsure if we can smoothly upgrade due to the age of many of the dependencies and libraries we use, things like that Saxon library. And then we also are limited to the team that we can use, the developers we can expect to participate, because to work on that upgrade, you would need to have a very good understanding of the GeoNetwork codebase. And the second proposal was a little bit more bold, and that's to make an entirely new application that uses something called Spring Boot. So this results in a little standalone app rather than like a web application you install in Tomcat. And doing it this approach, we need to port things module by module. So porting like the searching experience or porting the harvesting experience. This is attractive to us because it requires less knowledge of the entire GeoNetwork codebase, so we can expand our development team. Also, Spring Boot is very popular. There's lots of documentation available. It's much easier to find help, and it's much easier to find and hire developers that are familiar with Spring Boot. This also gives us a chance to kind of start from scratch and port over only the functionality that is used, only the functionality that is popular, and it allows us to slim down the application to something that we can maintain with our development team. There is one significant downside. During the migration, we're going to have to run two applications side by side. GeoNetwork 5 to deal with all the functionality that's been ported, and then GeoNetwork 4 to deal with anything that hasn't been migrated yet. So it's a very creative approach, and we're going to see how that plays out. Yeah, any questions on that? It's going to be the kind of the rest of the presentation here. So, anybody? Okay. So the real opportunity here is they've gone for proposal B, a new application, and that's an opportunity to clean up, improve, and simplify the GeoNetwork codebase. So this is a bold GeoNetwork 5 Spring Boot approach. So rather than staying with Spring Framework, we're migrating to Spring Boot. Spring Boot is more friendly. It's recommended, lots of examples, easier to test, less labor intensive. Rather than configuring things with XML documents, you're doing it with little annotations. It's also considered cloud friendly because you can make these little standalone Spring Boot apps that you can deploy each in their own separate container. And it's optimized for that, for fast startup of these little containers. And we're going to port only what is needed, modern and maintainable, and simplify the code base. And as I said, this is going to result in a tandem environment. Picture those bicycles with two seats on them. So during development, we're going to be running two code bases at the same time. So Spring Boot GeoNetwork 5 will be the front end. And for any functionality that's not ported, it will proxy to or delegate to a GeoNetwork 5 web application. What things are out of scope? So we also have an interesting challenge in that the user interface for GeoNetwork is written in Angular JS, which reached end of life a couple years ago. I know there's a GeoNetwork UI Data Hub project, which is also built on top of GeoNetwork, and that continues to run. We are not tackling the user interface upgrade as part of this GeoNetwork 5. We're strictly focused on updating the backend component, and we're going to do our best to allow GeoNetwork UI and the traditional GeoNetwork front end to remain operational during this transition. Yeah, so we're not updating the UI as part of this project. So here's what this looks like. On the front end, we might end up with individual apps for searching or editing. We'll have the data hub based on GeoNetwork UI, and we'll also have the traditional kind of GeoNetwork for UI. These are all the kinds of things of services that can be running on top of GeoNetwork. We'll have GeoNetwork 5, which will be a Spring Boot application. Inside there will be the different modules that have been ported, the gateway, the indexing, searching, and so on. And that will delegate to GeoNetwork 4 behind the scenes, and it will make use of a database and an Elasticsearch index for all the data management. So this is the vision, but this is only the vision during the development cycle. The final goal is to have a standalone GeoNetwork 5 Spring Boot application that you can run and deploy. And this should be a smooth upgrade for anyone coming from GeoNetwork 4. It's just they will run a single application rather than having to install Tomcat and so forth. Okay. So I'm going to report back on a bit of the work that's been done in the GeoNetwork 5 code base. So one of the first ones is DCAT. And so this is like the Dublin core metadata standards. And they've just had a DCAT AP-NL sprint. So this is focusing on the geospatial profile of DCAT as customized for the Netherlands. So this has been funded by the Cadastre Agency from the Netherlands. And what they're doing here is they're taking their metadata records, which are in one of these ISO formats, and they're transforming them into DCAT records for publication. And yeah, so they've just completed some work on that, taking that from GeoNetwork 4 over to the GeoNetwork 5 code base. So this is an example of taking a record and producing the specific DCAT XML output you see below. And then there's also a HTML view to display the information exported in this format. So we can see going down to the side there, you'd be able to download in the DCAT format. So it ends up being an additional output format. The other thing that was done during this sprint was as you're making your metadata records, there's new restrictions that come into play if you want the output to work for DCAT export. And so they've added some validation and metadata rules to give people feedback when they're editing to make sure that the output can be published in the DCAT format. Yeah, and so the output format's available from the catalog service web. The next one I'd like to talk about is OGCAPI-Records. I know I mentioned that a little bit at the start. This is one of these REST JSON services that is being defined. And we've actually picked up some development that started off as a microservice project alongside GeoNetwork. And it's the first block of functionality that we've taken over to GeoNetwork 5. And we've used it as a proof of concept to make sure that the architecture works and that the destination is worth traveling to. So the idea here is that I'm trying to think how to say it. So the actual web service provides a little JSON output, and then that JSON can be consumed by different clients. And so we've made a very small Angular demo app that talks to the backend services and allows you to browse the metadata records and have a very simple view of what the records are publishing. I wish David was here. He could show you a demo of this. One thing that's interesting is this standard is still being written, and so we're actively working with the OGC standards body and helping refine these standards. So one of the new features that has been added to the standards is the idea of queryable. And so we've been able to surface that in our OGC API records implementation. And so it allows us to make, advertise what we are collecting in our index and allows you to query it. And then also we've been able to surface our different output formats, including the DCAT work we've just talked about. And we've got more ideas in progress. The other functionality that's currently being worked on is the idea of adding facets to the OGC API record standard. So in GeoNetwork, you can see we've got the different types of resources, allows you to cut down your results based off of different keywords, different categories of information. So we're working on adding that to the OGC API records specification. And so we've been working closely with the standards body, giving them feedback as we try to implement. On the back end, it's very interesting. OGC API services are defined using a big document format called Swagger, or what's it called? OpenAPI. And so we've been taking the OpenAPI definition provided by the OGC, and we've modified it and improved it a little bit so that we can do code generation. And this is really interesting because we can take the OpenAPI record and generate out the Java code to be used directly, and then pick up the generated code and use it in GeoNetwork 5. So the goal for this one is to have a standalone Spring Boot app that is just for OGC API records. So you can see this as a little standalone app. It has just the OGC API records module, and then it has a bunch of the supporting information that's needed, formatting and schema models and so on. And the result is a web service that we can run, that we can have our little sample OGC API records app, or we can make use of a Stack browser or some of the other OGC API clients. So this is a really nice proof of concept of the approach. Just going to go through the milestones of what's planned. So we're breaking the GeoNetwork 5 project out into a series of milestones. So we are partway through the read-only catalog services, and we're making sure that this works with a couple web services, CSW and OGC API records. Next up, we're going to be adding configuration and security integration. So the first milestone allows us to publish information. The second milestone allows us to restrict who can see what. Once we've got those two pieces working, we're going to be adding harvesting, so we can actually use GeoNetwork 5 to harvest from other catalogs and publish the result. And the milestone after that adds the remaining APIs required to do public search. So at milestone 4 here, we should be able to run the Data Hub client. We should be able to run the GeoNetwork 4 search app. And milestone 4 and 5 add record metadata management and record editing. So milestone 1 looks a little bit like this, just having enough information to publish the web services. Milestone 2 is configuration and security, and we're going to be testing that with the DCAT exports we talked about. Automated publishing, we're hoping to harvest from the different catalogs. We're going to focus on the Cadastre organization from the Netherlands. Milestone 4, we're looking to test with the GeoNetwork 5 client and the Data Hub client. Milestone 5, record management and record editing. And finally, how are we going to get all of this done? So this is where we're appealing to you for support. We're going to be, we're announcing today a crowdfunding effort. So we've got exactly the same challenge here as was faced by the GeoServer project. rather than do an all or nothing crowdfunding campaign, we're going to be raising funds for each milestone outlined before. And that's partly because we just don't want to wait. We're really pleased with the progress made thus far, and we'd like you to join us. Both developers can join in kind. And then we also are looking for your financial support. So GeoNetwork is used by 80 to 90% of the countries in the EU. And with that amount of use, the project is a little bit underfunded. So we're making the appeal today. So here's the breakdown of where we stand. Milestone 1 has a little bit of fundraising left to go. And then we're looking for funding for the next several milestones. And we'd like to complete this activity over the next couple of years. I think that's my talk. Thank you.